Hello, everyone. Welcome to a discussion of the Bhagavad Gita. And I am privileged to have as my guest today the one of the translators for this beautiful edition of the Bhagavad Gita, William Whorton. And I have so many questions. I read this and I adored your work. I'm very excited to discuss this really important text at the heart of another important text, which is the Mahabharata. And so I thought perhaps first of all, welcome, Bill. It is a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
And it's an absolute pleasure talking to you, Philip.
Wonderful.
I read that this is the first time I've ever done this, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Grand. All right. Well, then I think we're going to have a fun time. So I did want to start by asking if you wouldn't mind, could you please give us some background and context? For many of my viewers might not know much about the Bhagavad Gita. So I think it would be very helpful to begin with a little bit of context, how it fits within the Mahabharata, and what is at the heart of it. What is its place within the Mahabharata? If you don't mind giving a very general sense of all of that.
Well, I think that's a wonderful first question because what we did in the introduction is we dealt with that issue right away. One of the things that we wanted to do is to emphasize the fact that the Bhagavad Gita is really only 700 verses within 100,000 verses of the Mahabharata. So it's book 6 of 18 books within the Mahabharata. Right. And so one of the things that usually defines it is it's usually defined as the philosophical or the religious essence of the entire Mahabharata. Now, one of the great mysteries to both my partner, I will call Achan Tatsini, who is assistant professor Tatsini Sitsakun, and I will call her Achan Tatsini for this interview. Okay. So Achan Tatsini and I were always really curious as to what this wonderful philosophical text was doing in this incredible epic, which is really pure enchantment. Yeah. Of a time when gods and goddesses were traveling around the world with human beings falling in love, and wars and dice games, and war was emphasized, and it's a world of enchantment. And one of the things is people should understand is today the Bhagavad Gita is really a Bible, and it's worshipped by hundreds of millions of people. But yet the stories in the Mahabharata are still part of the world of movies, television, yeah, comic books, animation, cartoons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a work that really informs so much of the culture of India and Southeast Asia. I mean, it just informs so much of the experience in this part of the world. Okay, now the Bhagavad Gita itself, for me, one of the things that I want to emphasize to you and all of the people that are listening to this program, this book is a Bible. And it's a Bible. It's one of the only Bibles ever created in the world of literature about war, because it's about the battlefield for life. It's a sacred teaching about our lives, your life, Philip, my life, and the lives of everybody listening to us right now, that we are all on a battlefield for life. And this battlefield for life takes place in the transcendental. It takes place in the realm of morality. And it takes place in the world that we actually live in. Our bodies are a battlefield in which we fight morality. For morality, we fight for liberation. We fight for our emotions. Our bodies are born, we live, we decay, disintegrate, and we die. And then we move on. But
Hmm.
it's a battlefield for life. And these sacred teachings are all about that.
Yes. So there is in the story within the broader context of the Mahabharata, a literal mundane battlefield that is, of course, the context here is this dynastic struggle between the Kaurava brothers and the Pandava brothers. And in the
Right.
midst of this battle, of course, you have, because they are cousins to one another, you have people on both sides who are relatives, friends, mentors, and you have Arjun, who is in many ways the hero of this episode. He is the archer, he is the warrior, but he's looking upon the ranks of the enemy and realizing, oh, they are my brothers, my cousins, my mentors, my grandfather. You know, it's all this sorrow within him, and he's asking his charioteer Krishna, "How do I do this? I don't. I can't do this. This is not right." So this is the context for this episode, and as you say, though, there is a spiritual level to this whole dialogue, to this discussion between Krishna, who is much more than just Arjun's charioteer, and this. Perhaps you could explain the relationship between this dialogue between Arjun and Krishna and the concept of liberation, of nirvana. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Well, I think really this is a great question because you've hit right into the essence of the whole thing. And what we have, one of the things that's so interesting in the Mahabharata is this, is that Krishna is not Lord Krishna.
Hmm.
He's a relative. But in the Bhagavad Gita, he is Brahman. He is the pure, supreme, absolute of the universe. He is pure consciousness. He is in the form of Krishna avatar.
Hmm.
So he becomes the form that Prince Arjuna looks to.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of the things that's so interesting to me is that here we're dealing with both form and formless. Form is Lord Krishna as avatar, when in reality, he is also formless. He is the pure consciousness of Brahman, which informs everything in the universe. It is the universe, the eternal. So Prince Arjuna starts off, he's got a problem. He's in a state of despair.
Hmm.
He's in a state of despair because he's Kshatriya. Now, this is where the essence of the Bhagavad Gita begins, because it's Prince Arjuna's duty. It's his duty as Kshatriya to fight.
Right.
And yet he's telling Lord Krishna, I don't want to kill my relatives. I don't want to kill my friends. I don't want to kill my teachers. He's doing that. And what does Lord Krishna do? Lord Krishna laughs at him and tells him, what is this cowardness? Why are you even thinking in this kind of way? Because your thinking is at the worldly level. You're not thinking in terms of the transcendental. Your worldly considerations, the world of samsara, you are thinking in terms of mundane morality. You are thinking in terms of duality, good and bad, right and wrong. This is nonsense, Prince Arjuna.
Hmm.
Nonsense.
So
It's
the
all nonsense.
distinction there is the distinction between morality and duty. that Krishna is making Arjuna see.
Duty is transcendental.
Yeah.
Duty is a transcendental. This is now Philip, we are now entering into the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Duty is the essence of what we do. And you have to perform your duty. That is a transcendental, because that's what you were born to do. That's what you were born into.
Yeah.
And that's what you'll do. Now, the realm of morality is always in the realm of duality. Right, wrong, good, bad, that kind of thing. The world of duality is in the secular world. It's the worldly world. Morality, one of the problems, when I think I'm going to tell you a little story now, Philip.
Oh, please do.
When I was in university, we had a really, really bad time of it, because it was the time of the counterculture. I went into university in 1969. And it was the realm of the counterculture, and war was bad. It was always give peace a chance. Peace. Let's learn to love each other and all that sort of thing. Okay. But here was the problem. Is that duty in war, duty is the essence of war. It's sacrifice, and it's sacrificing of yourself. Sacrifice is the essence of the whole thing.
Right.
So I don't know. Would you have another question for me in regard to this?
Oh, I do actually, and it might be a little personal, so I hope you don't mind.
Sure.
I
don't mind at all.
Okay, good. You might be, I don't know for a fact, because I haven't looked into this, but you might be the only translator of the Bhagavad Gita to have earned a silver star and a bronze star and also a purple heart. And I don't know, maybe there's another one out there, but
I really don't think so. I think one of the aspects of our book is our translation of the Bhagavad Gita. I think it's the only translation out there that has to do with one of the translators who has 21 months of infantry combat behind them.
Right.
And that's actually one of the things that attracted my teacher, Ajahn Tatsani, to me also. So we wanted to work together on this.
Yeah.
Because I had actually lost between a pint and a quart of blood on the battlefield, and frankly speaking, I've killed quite a few people. So when I come to talk about war and the Bhagavad Gita, I'm not talking as this is not a kind of an academic abstraction for me. This is a hardcore reality.
Right.
So one of the things that we wanted to do and also I should make another personal remark on this too, is I left the Marine Corps in 1969. I resigned my commission as a captain in the United States Marine Corps because I was mentally and spiritually sick from war.
Right.
And the thing of it is I knew I was sick. And so what I did is I resigned my commission, and I decided that I would have to go to philosophy to try to heal myself from this. And this is where I went into Eastern, Western, and educational philosophies. So this is what took me to the Gita, because I understand Prince Arjuna because I was Prince Arjuna. Prince Arjuna felt that terrible, terrible despair. I felt that terrible, terrible despair. And I knew exactly what he was going through. I never had any problem understanding Prince Arjuna, ever. Does that make any sense to you?
I have never been in combat, but it does make sense to me. Yes, it does.
And so the thing that I really love so much about the Gita is how do you deal with that issue of morality, secular, and transcendental? But see, the Bhagavad Gita, as we show in our essays, and we show in our writing, and we try to show in our translation throughout the translator's notes, et cetera, what these different aspects of the transcendental morality within the worldly and secular mean. Because this is the world your audience lives in also. This is the battlefield for life. This is the battlefield for life. And so when I went into this with my teacher at that time was Dr. Kashinath Upadhyaya, who
Yes.
was one of the truly great world scholars at that time. And I took 7 courses from him in Indian philosophy. And we stayed friends for the rest of our lives.
Mm.
And he was a remarkable man. So much of the information that I am putting into our translation of the Bhagavad Gita, I go over and over again in our book, say, I got this from Dr. Kashinath Upadhyaya. I got this from him. These came from class notes, personal conversations, and things like this. So one of the things I want to emphasize to you and to our friends out there is that I am not a scholar. I am the recipient of lots and lots of scholarship from other people.
Yeah.
And I have managed from my experiences of war to put them together, and I think a pretty interesting way.
I think
Because
so too. Yeah. And we are students for life, as you say,
we are
here.
students for life
You
on
give
that.
a
Yeah.
couple specific examples. You mentioned earlier how you try to illustrate how the message of transcendence in the Bhagavad Gita can be applied to our world, to our experiences. And you mentioned a couple very powerful examples that you experienced, one being that I'd like to mention, Major, and I'm not sure I'm going to say his name correctly, the Vietnamese name.
No, that's
Tom?
okay. His name is Major Nguyen Hu Tong.
Tom.
And
Okay.
I'll just say that, yeah, just say Major Tong.
Okay,
Major,
and very powerful story. If you don't mind talking about that for a
please.
moment, that experience with him and sharing the water and the tea that you had prepared and all of that with the North Vietnamese soldiers, and as that applies to this idea of transcendence.
Well, let me just talk to our friends out there and just say that this happened during an afternoon when I was walking along the Laotian border, marching along which is a very, very dangerous area at that time. I mean, it was filled with North Vietnamese army soldiers, and it was a very bad place to be. So we were walking on the Laotian border, but all of a sudden I heard a whole bunch of shots go out from the head of the column.
Hmm.
And then the word came back, get the advisor up there. I was senior battalion advisor for 3rd Battalion, 2nd Regiment, 1st Armored Division. So I had a battalion of Vietnamese that I was the senior battalion advisor for. So my boss, Major Tong, my counterpart, passed the word back for me to run up. So I ran up there and I saw about 5 North Vietnamese soldiers that were in the process of dying.
Hmm.
They were shot to pieces. And my counterpart, Major Tong, was trying to put Band-Aids on them, and but they knew that I always carried hot tea in my pack, because one of the things that my sergeant and I did, the first thing we did every morning was what we call boil the billy. We made 3 canteens of tea, because marching in the heat of Vietnam is just pure hell. And you're marching up those hills and through the jungle, and you sweat, and you have to have, what I used to do was you drink hot Chinese tea, use the hot Chinese tea to save my body from the heat, the marching. So my counterpart knew that I had hot tea in my pack and on me. So he said, pour tea for these wounded soldiers. And so I was delighted to do that. I was really delighted to do that. So we got together with other soldiers and we got little pieces of cups and things like that, that I could take my burning hot Chinese tea, put them in little cups, and we could give them to the soldiers to sip along with some cigarettes. And then Major Tong told them that we are going to stay here until you go. You do not have to worry about animals eating on you, and you don't have to worry about red ants coming to get you, because the red ants and those on blood, I don't know if you know what red ants and blood will do on blood, on bodies, but it's horrible. It's just horrible. So what we did was we poured the tea, gave the tea, and then we asked the soldiers where they came from, and they came from Yunnan province, which is about 600 kilometers to the north. They'd walked down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They'd been in Ashau Valley 6 years fighting. And at that point, I just began to cry. Rivers of tears just came out of my eyeballs. And also, I looked at Major Tong. He was crying too. And the Vietnamese around us. I mean, we were 6 years in that hell. 6 years of that, walking 600 kilometers through malaria, the bombing, and we were bombing the heck out of North Vietnam at that time. I mean, bombing incredible amounts. And they'd walk that 6 years in Ashau Valley. The sacrifice is incredible. And I could feel the weakness of my own mind. I could feel how weak my own mind was compared to that of my enemy. And I just began to cry. And I wasn't the only one sobbing. I mean, my counterpart, well, we were, because this is sacrifice, Philip. This is sacrifice. Now, whether or not this meets the level of transcendence, I'm not Lord Krishna.
Right.
I don't know. But to me, it is. And as far as morality goes, what my counterpart did, and what a lot of the Marines and soldiers that I served with in Vietnam did, this is not the first time I saw something like this, I call morality. Now, I'll let your viewers decide what they think about it. That's what their right. Their right is to think about it any way they want to. But that to me is sacrifice, and that to me is transcendental. I saw the same thing happen on the American side once. I worked with a helicopter unit, and the helicopter unit I worked with, one of the things that I had to do as senior battalion advisor is I was responsible for all the medevacs when people got wounded. I was responsible for getting artillery fire in, for the Air Force bombing, Navy gunfire. I was responsible for tremendous amounts of firepower and stuff like that. Also, food, water, ammunition. But the big thing was the medevacs when my troops got shot. And those helicopters would come in under any kind of fire, Philip. The fire, I mean, you could watch machine gun fire coming at them so fast, it would be incredible. But they would come in for those wounded. They would come in. And when I tried to give them, medals or heroism, all they would do is say, they would refuse to give me their names. And they said, it's just duty.
Duty. Yeah.
It's duty. And then all I could do when that was over, Philip, is I stood at attention as the helicopter stood off, and I gave them the best salute that I was capable of delivering. That's all I could do.
Wow.
So, anything? Is there anything else I could add to that?
Oh my goodness. I mean, those are very powerful. You also tell a story of visiting the children's hospital, which I thought was tremendously.
Well, that was the children's hospital event was personally, again, this is dealing with the issues of what Prince Arjuna would have to feel. Is the despair, that sense of horror of the killing.
Yeah.
Well, this happened. The event that you're referring to happened when actually I had come back to talk with my boss Lieutenant Colonel uh, Donald Parsons. He was my Army commander. And I'd come back, and then a friend of mine dropped by, an old Marine Corps buddy of mine had dropped by, and he invited me to go to a Vietnamese hospital that they'd set up. I said, okay, I'll go with you, because he's a good friend of mine, and okay, let's go. And then I walked in, it was a children's hospital that the Marine Corps had set up. And I'm sitting there looking at 30 to 40 little babies, and they're all in states they didn't have arms, they didn't have legs. Some of them had no intestines, no eyes. They were all screaming in terror. They were screaming in terror in a world of just utter hell and I looked at that. I fell to the ground. I started to cry, and I fell to the ground. I couldn't move. And my friend and the Vietnamese nurses had to haul me out of the building because I couldn't move. And I just stayed in a state of immobility, just sobbing. And then my friend waited for me until I was able to take control of myself again. But I got to tell you, that left its mark on me, Philip. And I continued fighting. But it was duty. Duty drove me to do it. But it was the cost. The cost of my soul is indescribable. And I will say it's indescribable because I can't put it in words.
Right. This idea of transcendence that Krishna is essentially not only telling Arjuna, but also showing Arjuna by transforming into his universal form in the midst of the Bhagavad Gita. I think you're...
Exactly.
Sorry?
You got that perfect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that. You got that perfect. Yeah. That was great.
Yeah, it's a truly stirring moment in this episode, and it's as you said, you just used the word a moment ago, but it's indescribable, really. What it can succeeds to me anyway in conveying. But you've given specific examples from your life where you have experienced a type of transcendence as well, where you felt this. You left your own self and you had this connection with those North Vietnamese soldiers for whom you felt an outpouring. You felt a connection to those individuals in that moment, even though they were the enemy. There is something truly transcendent, I think, about that experience. You also go ahead.
Permit me to say, in this realm of transcendence, Philip, there is no other.
Yes.
Everything is one.
That's right.
Everything is a unity, a totality of one. There is no other. There is no enemy. There is no duality. There is only one. Wow. And we are all connected to that one. It's a oneness, a pure consciousness of oneness. And we are that. I'll go back to the Upanishads and that.
Yeah. Oh, love it. I love it. You've experienced this in another realm, though, as well. And this might surprise some people, but through grammar. And
oh, yes.
Very interesting, the experience of transcendence that you had when encountering the middle voice. Now, people who speak English should be familiar with active voice versus passive voice, but in some languages, like ancient Greek and in Sanskrit, there is a middle voice. Would you please explain how you arrived at a sense of transcendence through your engagement with the middle voice as you were translating the Bhagavad Gita?
Well, one of the things that's so interesting is my partner, Achan Tatsani, is a real scholar. She's a very, very gentle scholar. But when it comes to teaching, she can be really fierce, fierce as any tough sergeant. So when we were doing when we started the Bhagavad Gita in 1999, we didn't even look at the Bhagavad Gita until the year 2002. Because from 1902, I did nothing but grammatical exercises, vocabulary, etc. And I loved it because every week I would take my homework and then Ajahn Tatsani would just rip it to shreds because of all the mistakes that I made. But one of the things that came out because of philosophy and because of my love of philosophy and because of my love of languages, when Ajahn Tatsani started teaching me about the middle voice, and she started to get into that, all of a sudden, again, a torrent of tears came out of my eyeballs because I believed that I had heard through a spontaneous intuition, I believed that I had been actually touched by the absolute because of what I got out of it. She mentioned to me that every fourth class verb in the middle voice, ya, with a ya ending, ya suffix, was all part of the wheel of life of verbs: birth, life, old age, liberation, decay, disintegration, sickness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is all wheel of life. And all of a sudden, that had metaphysical, theological, and ontological relevance to me because it had truth. Because now I could see it was the active voice is the realm of the doer. I'm a doer, a doer, a doer. John hit the ball. Okay. John's a doer.
There's ego involved. I'm the doer.
There's an ego. It's an ego. There's an ego involved.
Yeah.
Then the passive voice. John was hit by the ball. Okay, something happened to John. Passive voice. Okay. But the middle voice is John hits the ball. There is a result from that action, and that will come back on the doer. And so, in other words, we're living in everything that we do, every word that we speak. As I look at you, as I talk to you, everything has cause and effect. We are having cause and effect on each other, and it's all coming back. It'll come back. It'll come back on us, kind of thing. And and to me, this had real ontological significance. It really and truly did. So I just, because we live in this world where we think we're doers, but we're not doers. There is no ego. The ego is delusion. And this is the essence of
Maya. Yes.
all Maya. It's all Maya. That's exactly correct. You have it perfectly. But in this middle voice, you'll never find any writing on the middle voice. This is pure Ajahn Tatsani.
Yeah.
And she didn't even realize what she lives in this world. This is her natural world. For her, there was nothing special. And when I began sobbing my eyeballs out, she looked at me and she was going, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What did I do?" I mean, she really began to kind of freak out a little bit there, and I had to tell her, no, I'm just having a moment of where I'm seeing truth. I'm just having a moment where I see truth.
Wow.
And then I explained to her what I was seeing. And then she said, but to her, this is all very, very natural.
Yeah.
But this is Asia. It's a different realm. By the way, I've talked to certain Chinese scholars on Chinese language because I'm fascinated by Chinese, and they say the middle voice is also in Chinese.
Oh,
Not,
interesting.
yeah, so this is not, but this has not been caught on to by, as far as I know, Achan Tatsudi is the only one who has ever brought this out as a teaching point for reality and truth.
Yeah. Well, you're
I'm
someone, you're familiar with
Yeah,
several languages. We were talking before we started recording about our passion for language and that we're
right.
student language. And I find it fascinating that one's language, and you're probably familiar with the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis and
Oh, yes,
the
yes, yes.
idea that your language to some degree influences the way you experience the world. And this is a great illustration of how we don't have a middle voice. And so this is an insight that had to come to you in a way that was revelatory in that moment, that was so important that that you had tears in your eyes. Uh,
Right.
it's amazing to me that linguistic study is a way to help one realize to arrive at this type of revelation. It's wonderful.
Oh, I think linguistics is eh, language is the house of being.
Mm,
Martin Heidegger. Yeah, it's the house of being.
yeah.
It really is. And you enter these worlds, and I feel a great honor every time I enter a foreign world, a
Uh,
foreign language world, because I'm entering into a new way of looking at being,
uh, yeah.
a new way of looking at being. It
Yeah.
provides me a new way of looking at a different realm of being. I can't go beyond that, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, Very difficult.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, this has been a really great discussion, but I really want to give you a chance to highlight what you feel are what messages would you want people to receive from the Bhagavad Gita. And you can go wherever you like with this. But what do you feel would be, what would you want me to take from my experience of reading this translation of the Bhagavad Gita?
What I would like for you and everybody listening to our talk right now, our conversation, is what I would like you to take away from all this is that you have an opportunity to become aware that you are on a battlefield for your life.
Mm,
And I stress awareness. Be aware there is a transcendental experience. There is a transcendental way of experiencing reality. There is a moral way of experiencing reality.
mm,
There is a secular way of expressing reality. Do not become attached to anything other than discovering what is your true self.
mm,
What is your true nature? One of the things that I want people to take away from the Bhagavad Gita is this. At the moment of birth, at the first moment after birth, we experience lack.
yeah.
At the second moment after birth, we experience the desire to fulfill that lack, to fill that lack.
Yeah.
And all of our lives from that moment on are desire chasing lack. Desire is our mortal and immortal enemy.
Mm,
Our enemy must always be our attachment to our desires.
mm,
Be aware of your desires. Be aware of the root of your desires and overcome them.
mm.
Overcome them. The way I am going to overcome mine is through the middle voice. Everybody has their own way of doing things.
Okay.
One of the essence things, one of the greatnesses of the Bhagavad Gita is the Bhagavad Gita is not a work that demands any particular sets of beliefs. It
Uh,
demands a desire for awareness awareness. It demands awareness, but
Ah,
it does not demand any form. There are infinite ways to the transcendental,
yeah,
infinite. You have your way, I have my way.
yeah,
Our viewers will have their ways, but we all must be aware of where we are on the battlefield for life.
so
And
this
we
is
must be
Krishna.
aware of the desire.
Krishna is telling Arjuna, it's your attachment to your ego, to yourself,
Right.
that is causing you to feel this grief, to feel that you are incapable of doing your duty because of your attachment to morality. And he not only tells Arjuna, you need to transcend this, but he actually illustrates transcendence in that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful remark, Philip. That is really, really good. Yes.
Okay, good. Wow. Anything else that you would want some potential reader to take from the experience of the Bhagavad Gita, in addition to that beautiful message that you just gave?
I don't really have anything else to say except that I'm an 82-year-old man
Mm,
who has experienced a lot of things in my life.
yeah.
And I am a great, great lover of the Bhagavad Gita. And all I can do is say that I think probably one of the great moments of my life is I am so fortunate that I was able to meet both my teacher, Dr. Kashinath Upadhyaya, Achan Tatsani Sinsakun, and I was lucky to meet Leonard, who actually published this work. So I feel very, very fortunate that I have been very, very lucky at the age of 82 to be able to do something like this and also to meet somebody like you.
Ah, well,
So,
likewise.
that's been given me the opportunity to do that too. So thank you. I want
I
to say thank you
I
very
feel
much.
very similarly myself, and I want to thank you for your work and the production of all the people who your collaborator in the translating, Dr. Nydorf, who has published it and helped to give it a wider audience. And but you know, your work here, your work in, as you've put it in here yourself, you knew you needed to do a lot of work for yourself when you left the Marines in order to study philosophy. Uh, you were doing something very important for yourself, but in the process, what you've done is you have touched a lot of other lives. You have done a beautiful thing in producing this book, so I want to thank you for it. And it will be a very helpful thing for many people, I believe, to encounter this and wrestle with it and meditate upon it. So thank you very much.
And thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
All right, everyone, thank you also for watching. And you can purchase this book. What would be the best way, Bill, for people to get a hold of a copy other than Amazon? Or should they go to the Uppsala Books website? Is that one method they could use?
Uppsala Books. I just got the thumbs up from my publisher.
Okay,
He said Uppsala Books is really, really good.
excellent.
Amazon and Uppsala Books also. Okay.
Brilliant. I will put a link in the description so that people can easily find that. And once again, thank you, Bill, so much. It's been a blessing to speak with you. And also, thank you, everyone, for watching. And until next time.